Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the king of podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
And welcome back to the program. It's episode 808. Get your 808s out. Now let's get the bass beat going. Wrestling is Real podcast once again. Kingofpodcasts.com is where you find the show. And also got a YouTube channel chock full of content. If you haven't subscribed there, I'm trying to get the 300 subscribers. Listen, I'm not like those other shows. Well, hundreds of thousands of subscribers here. Okay. You know why? Because I don't go for clickbait. All right. YouTube.com. Just look for King of Podcasts. You can also find a link over on kingofpodcasts.com. Now, like I said, I'm not the big subscriber here. 300. I'm trying to get to 300 right now. I'm at 293 as of this recording. And you know why? Listen, number one, all my programming is explicit. It's 18 and up because I might curse. I might say shit or something else because it doesn't matter. I want to be able to go ahead and have freedom to do this program and not be under any censorship. Now, when I'm doing radio, that's one place. When I can do podcasting, it's a different story. The second thing is, I want to be able to go ahead and not feel like I need to go ahead and create content just to go ahead and make people happy or make them like me. I don't care. I'm not looking to go and make favors. I'm not looking to try to bring on wrestling stars here to go ahead and try to create some kind of clout for myself. I've been doing the same show for 12 years. I'm not worried about guests. The only guest I had on here that was significant of a wrestler was Rhett Giddens. That was it. Other than that, I don't do guest interviews. This is just monologue. I might have had a guest. I might have had a co-host here, but we were just talking. And the other thing is, I don't get into palace intrigue. I just don't care. When I continue to see people, and we're not going back after the crowds last week. The new thing is, AEW is about to lose their broadcast deal because rumored reports display that, first of all, okay, there's stories that are actually fact and those that are not. Now, in some cases, the wrestling blogs out there, the dirt sheets, might get some stuff right. But it's all rumors, speculation, innuendo. We don't know. We really don't know. Though people might have an idea of where things are going to go, but again, this is all speculation. And when you hear the stories, it's like a Dave Meltzer story. He's kind of speculating. But because Dave Meltzer's been around for 40 years, maybe something he might say might stick. Which is why people still buy his newsletter and they subscribe and they watch Brian and Dave and Mike Sabervivi and all those guys all the time. They got a good little racket going on, okay? And they've been synonymous a long time, but they're also wrestling historians, which they do get that stuff right. The news, maybe a little bit off once in a while. But I'll still quote them. If there's something up there that I think would be good, I'll take their stories. I will go ahead and give them the credence. But when it comes to what people like to use as cannon fodder, okay, the bubble fans out there, all of you that are just wanting to go ahead and punch down on Tony Khan, punch down on AEW, punch down on everybody else. I can't stand this favoritism thing. I can't stand, and this is me coming across where I'm not I like the underdogs. If you didn't know that by now, I like the underdogs. I respect WWE. I respect the craft, the work they've done. And by the way, I think a lot of things they do are right. When it comes to a big, gloated corporate company with a lot of shareholders and a whole lot depending on them for their broadcast deals, you want to go ahead and go after and say, AEW is going to be dropped because Warner Brothers Discovery is going to look at WWE because of new rumored reports. Okay, make that make sense. So Warner Brothers Discovery, which is part of the deal where they put into $1 billion a year to get the NBA package for 2 games a year, for Major League Baseball several times a week, NHL once a week, all those playoffs, all those games. And you're telling me they're going to have enough money to feasibly go ahead and pay $600 to $1 billion a year for WWE to be put on what channel? So they're going to replace TBS or TNT with this programming and put it over there. Is that what we're thinking? And they're going to outbid NBC Universal for the deal. We don't know where Raw is going to go. Okay, but still, Raw, to get the deal they're going to get on cable, they're going to go ahead and ask for what? $800 million a year, if not more. So they could do that. But I mean, they still have to worry about the fact that, listen, live sports is their thing, but they're also have to worry about Max. Okay, CW took the NXT brand on a lower rate, by the way. And you know what they probably went from under CW is because they probably the Universal team, you know what, they wanted to unload NXT. They gave them the deal, right? They gave them the deal, a 4-year deal, and now they're going to move off. And better off for them. So they probably got, what, maybe $100 million now for NXT rights? We're going to read the story in a minute. I haven't checked the story from Deadline yet, but, you know, they got a deal. Good for them. But the details have not been disclosed. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So CW is going to take over the NXT brand. Great. The developmental brand gets their own channel. Probably get a primetime spot. But you're talking about a CW channel that's also it's in flux. They're completely overhauling all their programming. The CW is owned by Nexstar Media Group. It's not even close to what CBS or Viacom held onto it. They're kind of going the UPN model where they're just having to go ahead and bring back wrestling to help bolster the rest of the lineup. The CW has other programming, but there's almost like reality shows. They got other scripted programming somewhat. But remember, CW was always synonymous with Riverdale, with Dynasty, with all these DC Universe shows, which have all gone by the wayside. No Flash, no Superman and Lois, all that's going away. It's phasing out. And by doing that, they have to replace that programming. But it's because CW and the ownership group now is trying to do something different. They have to just rework the line because, listen, they're buying a network. When networks are not even that valuable anymore because it's streaming that's supposed to be like still the deal. But for a Nexstar Media Group, this was a deal for them where they were able to go and get this on the cheap. They took it over. They have all these affiliates. And they can provide programming. They can find a way to go ahead and put together programming to do what they need to do. And NXT putting it over there on CW, okay. Now, we don't know about NWA. We don't know if this affects the NWA deal. Was what was reported. But it's not been official by CW. And we don't know if the incident at NWA's Samhain pay-per-view, where Father James Mitchell decided to go ahead and, ingest some coke on camera, that's not a good point. We don't know what's going on with that yet either. But everyone wants to go and bash these other companies. Okay, so NWA gets thrown under the rug. The fact that TNA changed their name back, they're going to get thrown under the rug. AEW, because their ratings haven't been doing so well, up against Collision, it was going up against college football, or going up against NBA, or whatever else. And the same thing goes for, and the crowds are getting lighter, and Tony Khan's losing it, and da-da-da-da. Like, come on, get out of here with that. Let's get into the actual story. Okay, you want to go ahead and bash them, you go right ahead and do it. But you know what? Do it the other side. Okay, you want to point at the competition, who you don't like? Point at your company. Point at the company that you represent, that you're loyal to. When WWE got their deal with Fox in 2018, their deal was that Fox initially, even when the deal came across, Fox, which by the way was not owned by Disney yet, the Disney deal switched, right? The Fox Disney merger switched everything. But the Fox deal happened after this WWE deal was made. But nobody's talking about that part. That was March 20th, 2019. So about 6 months after the Fox deal, which was already been in, right? Which was already in before, Disney inherited the contract. And for Disney, they're losing their ass right now on Disney Plus because they might have subscribers, but the money they're trying to get for it, the movies that they've had that have gone box office have been going bust. They have not been performing well. They're not getting the money they're supposed to be getting back on it based on the amount of budget they're putting on them. So they're taking a bloodbath right now on all their movies. the streaming is underperforming. And they're putting up so much money for content, scripted content. I mean, for what ABC and ESPN, by the way, Disney might even just unload ESPN at some point because it's so much a hemorrhaging channel right there, and all the rights and fees and all this stuff. Like, Disney could really do themselves a favor by letting ESPN go independent, letting another media entity take it over. But WWE, as long as things happen here with SmackDown, okay, Fox was getting, probably the best ratings of the night, 18 to 49 every Friday night. Okay, they're not going to beat Blue Bloods or Hawaii Five-0 or whatever it was they have on CBS on the older demographic, but they were getting an audience there, and they were basically staying around the same audience that they had. It was pretty consistent, 2.5, 3.5 million people. We don't know whether we're getting on the day after or the video on demand, the streaming numbers, but the numbers stayed where they were, pretty much in flux on Friday nights. And Friday nights are still kind of unopposed. Except for like maybe, your regular sports, basketball, baseball, but nothing NFL. Not really college football. Nothing else is getting in the way of it. So they were kind of in a good spot for themselves on Fox. And when Fox had the deal initially, the first year, remember Progressive coming on? Remember how much advertising was going across the board? Like, they were really bringing some pretty good sized sponsors. Cricket Wireless was still one at the time, and they were able to get some, they were trying to work on getting bigger sponsors. They felt momentum. But when the switch changed from Fox, Disney had to go and say, well, this thing needs to make some ad dollars. And you know what? Maybe cable doesn't mind getting the lower ad rates for what wrestling gets, right? Maybe they're not so happy with Pizza Hut and Domino's and, all these other basically fast food outlets putting ad time on there. Okay. They're going to get a couple other advertisers to come on board. And obviously the advertising that was going on with the WWE in the first place has amplified because they've been doing quite a bit. Like, remember, they got Bud Light as a sponsor at one point until UFC took it now as a permanent sponsor for them for a while. And then you look at, they didn't make enough money. Like, ratings are one thing, but this is still free TV. And because Disney's hemorrhaging so much money right now, they don't want to go ahead and take on this where they're kind of breaking even or not even making money on it. Because for WWE, they're not going to take a pay cut. TKO Group Holdings is going to do that. So as long as that's going on, they're not going to worry about that. Step off. And by the way, this is also after a pretty good year for WWE when it came to building up the WrestleMania, up the SummerSlam, the Bloodline storyline, that continuing across. Because if I had to go and look at the ratings now for what they did with the Bloodline storyline in place on SmackDown, if we just looked at that alone, going back to January, consistently 2.2, all the way up to, let's say, WrestleMania time to 2.2, and then they stayed pretty consistent, up to 2.5 million, around 2.5 million, getting up to WrestleMania season. And actually, there were some points that were actually going up a little bit higher for what they were doing. But pretty consistent across the board. Never dropped under 2 million, except for the times they go on FS1. But pretty consistent. And then when you get John Cena coming out for appearances, they bumped up, man. Bumped up a couple 100,000. So they had things they're working off of that were doing pretty well. They were able to get some, when Roman Reigns is gone, we're able to sustain the ratings, sustain the numbers. Good for them. So now, where do we go from here? Besides the fact that SmackDown was able to go and keep a pretty decent audience, they needed to make ad dollars and needed to make bigger money. And they're making less money on rate than they were their other programming. And this is not programming they own. Like, Fox would have their own studios and doing contests if it's 21st Century Fox, or if it's, whatever. Like, they would have their own studios producing content for them. They're not buying from somebody else. Keeping it internal, and they're outsourcing this Okay. They're outsourcing this and they're trying to get across the board. But I mean, for AEW and going over to TBS or TNT, they're not making even the kind of money that WWE's making. They're making what, $100 or what, 100,000, 100 million, what? I'm sorry, that was horrible. I want to say what, like 150, $200 million, right? 240, something like that. It wasn't much. I mean, it's, dollars of donuts what AEW is making for their programming and be able to go and put some ratings together. Like, yeah. Are they struggling a bit? Sure. Last couple of weeks have not been doing that well. And, got to figure out why. What is it they're kind of missing out on? And why it's kind of struggling? And Collision just goes across the board. It can do good. It can go down. Like, good weekend, 500,000. Up against college football, by the way. But they were also doing that before college football. And they can pull a little bit more depending on. So they're trying. But, unless there's some kind of match or some kind of thing that goes on that really makes AEW matches stand out. Like tonight was just nothing special. Like they're just building up the full gear. But no special cards, no like pay-per-view style kind of things. There's that. They're just kind of winding down the rest of the year. Like tonight was like bread and butter Dynamite, just kind of meat and potatoes. Pretty basic. And it was fine. But they're pulling about the same numbers. Like, to get them to try to build up and build bigger numbers every year, yeah, it's going to be tough. That's going to be real tough for them. And they could try, but man, I mean, they're going to struggle with that. Now, compared to year, SmackDown year to year, 2.28 million viewers. And Dynamite averages 866,000. So let's go ahead and take off and go to last year. If we go to last year, yeah, I mean, SmackDown went up a bit. There were 2.11 million last year, and Dynamite was 963,000. So yeah, there's a drop off here. There's some questioning about why. I mean, there was a lot of stars that got brought into the space that would make a big difference, really kind of like splashing some new found interest in like, this complete idea of unpredictability. But right now we're just kind of like in a lull and they're just moving along with storylines, getting themselves the full gear. And then with Raw, if we go in with them, okay, averaging 1.73 million viewers last year. If we look at this year, 1.753. Everybody's flat. No matter how you slice it, everybody's flat. You know who's growing out of all this? Well, Impact Wrestling is averaging a little more, 2,000 viewers per week, right? A little bit like that. If we look at NXT, how about this? NXT, let me look real quick, hold on. Here we go. Yeah, so Impact Wrestling actually went up 15,000 viewers. NXT, 624,000 viewers on average year to year. And because of all the extra appearances by John Cena or Paul Heyman or Asuka or Judgment Day constantly being on, or, pick at Seth Rollins or Becky Lynch, Apollo Crews, Baron Corbin, how much of a jump do you think we got? Year to year, by the way. Year to year. 30,000 viewers. 625 to 655. That's it. So you might want to see those spikes in numbers and all this and that. Okay. Raw is up 17,000 viewers. 1.736 to 1.753. So if we want to just go ahead and just really just break things down across the board, NXT is flat. And they got a new deal. Probably because they weren't going to be able to get the deal they were getting at Universal. Universal was probably going to unload that. So they went and shopped around, and CW took an offer, and you know what? Probably didn't have to pay more than they did. And CW wanted to have programming. They're dying for programming, dying for some sports programming. They took it. So October 2024. And by the way, CW has already been doing things where they're offering a lot of live sports, like for themselves. ACC football, basketball games on Saturdays throughout the season. Live Golf, which is the big Saudi Arabia-based competition of golf to the PGA. They're also taking over inside the NFL, NASCAR's Infinity Series, and they're looking to offer more than 500 hours of sports programming coming up next year. 500 hours. So like they're really building up to try to do as much as they can. So we're going to go across. Deadline put a great report out about NXT and the deal, and looking at the other packages right now for WWE right now. We don't know anything about AEW. Nothing's been said about it, but all of wrestling's flat year to year. So far, we're at November, pretty good gauge. So why is that? Why is it TNA is actually kind of taking a little jump up, and AEW and WWE are still flat? I mean, for all the excitement as wrestling fans that we have, okay, everyone has to feel like, oh, well, look at this changes we got here. Look at who's coming in. Jade Cargill's coming in. Oh, look at this. And, right. And some new stars coming in from the fray, booing us from NXT. Oh, we're getting, Cameron Grimes up there. And, oh, look at Grayson Waller coming up there. And, oh, look, yeah, still flat. The same audience, the same basic audience of diehard wrestling fans watching this programming. Where's the new audience? Why are they not flocking to watch the shows? They're watching the social media, right? But where are they watching? They're not watching TV shows. Not accustomed to watch, 2-hour, 3-hour programming. Okay. But what's going on with that? Like, why can't we get some movement here? Storytelling and development of stars viral enough to keep people to watch. That will be something that needs to be worked on, because that's the problem. Well, you don't have Roman Reigns now for a couple of months. What are you going to do? MJF without Adam Cole, and MJF having to go ahead and, go roughshod and run 2 pay-per-view matches on Full Gear in 10 days. I mean, that's a lot right there. And there's other storylines they're working on. They got Jay White, the MJF storyline, pretty intricate. They got the Jay White angle, the Samoa Joe angle, the Kenny Omega angle, and the Devil and his minions, which we now know is not MJF. All that going on into a pretty widespread angle. And they got Timeless Tony Storm. They're doing this with Sky Blue right now, interactions with Julia Hart and the House of Black. Okay, that's good. Pretty basic storylines. It's the wrestling bread and butter. It's like what we like. Wrestling fans like this. But what about the rest of the crowd we're trying to bring into the fray? How about expanding the audience? You think, oh, we're going to get some stars in here that are going to really stand out. No, not yet. When we see some extra audience, you know what? It was Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. Yeah. Yeah. John Cena coming over because we know him as an action star. We know him on TV and all the other things that he does. Interesting. But what about new audience? I mean, you're targeting a younger audience. Is there something about them where they just can't get themselves over to cable? I mean, both shows are streaming. They could go, download the app for any of those shows. I mean, for me, I don't even watch the show so much. When it comes to Dynamite or AEW anyway, I have TBS and TNT downloaded, the apps, and I watch them there for the most part. WWE, Raw, yeah, USA. Except for SmackDown. SmackDown used to be on the Fox app. Now that's not even on an app. But now it'll be on the C. Well, we don't know what will be on the USA app now. Well, that's good. At least we'll get SmackDown now on a USA app so we can watch. Maybe it'll be on Peacock. That's good. So what else? So access to the program. That's one thing. But what about the content? I mean, seriously, the Bloodline just can't be the only storyline that works so well that other people got to talk about. What are we doing here? Where's storytelling? Like really building emotional attachment to the stars. And also making sure that when you build a star from the come up or when they're brought into the fray, that you build them up so strong and so dominant that people are going to care about them and they're going to want to see them succeed. Now, Cody, losing like he did at WrestleMania and having to work his way back, okay. But they haven't really stuck on that story because they'll just, parlay him off, the Jey Uso, and that whole storyline. I don't know where it works. Or Judgment Day. I don't know if that works either. But they put him off on other programs until. And then eventually we'll get back to Cody Rhodes. But such a large gap. And Roman Reigns, in the meantime, you have built no one at all that could go up and be the next opponent for Roman Reigns. And LA Knight was not it. Let's see how they treat him on SmackDown. If he's still treated in that main event spot. If he still gets another chance to go ahead and, confront Roman Reigns. No. Maybe confront Deadline? Maybe. Or Bloodline? Maybe. I said Deadline because I'm looking at the website. So Bloodline? Maybe. We can see him go up against Solo Sikoa or Jimmy Uso and probably lose. Because LA Knight, I believe, is going to go back down the totem pole. So he's not the answer. Who else you got? Cody? Yeah, maybe. But, he's over on Raw. And he's not going up against Roman. They're split up. Seth. But he's on Raw as well. Like, there's nobody on that SmackDown roster to go ahead and switch over. Which means they're not going to have any matches where Roman's going to be a part of or involved. And by the way, they had him in matches while he was going to go against his brothers. But that's all been kind of like let set by the wayside. In the meantime, Roman stays on vacation. Nobody going up for that Universal title. Seth will continue to be the workhorse. So will Gunther. That's fine. But no answer after that. Nothing else. We need to answer here. We need to figure out what is going on here. Why there's no good storytelling right now. And by the way, I'll tell you a couple things why. When you think about all these wrestlers that are into the fray, right? And remember, all these NXT Black and White 2019 facts, or the ones that were over in NXT or in WWE during the heyday, right? And they moved over to AEW. AEW and WWE also suffer from the same problem. They rather let their stars just be doing the gimmicks they want to do without any real intricacy, without any real attachment or investment, with real time to develop a character and also have them dominant. Okay? Hey, for those Karrion Crosses that really want to build this character and do something more with it, they give him a vignette here and there. They have him lose sometimes. They haven't changed his character. They've ruined the character like a million times because he keeps screwing with it. Okay, they're not going to let him do the NXT character. All right. And then when they bring him to that main roster, he's just not being used right at all. Or they just don't have any trust of him, no faith. And when you get there, okay. So you're just plugging holes. You're taking a star, okay, you screwed him up. Now you have to figure out what to do with him. You invested the time, you invested the effort, and creative couldn't get anything done for them. And Triple H, by the way, who is in charge of creative, is not getting him over. So what are you going to do? You got to go and patch him up. Look at what Alpha Academy's become, okay? They got Maxine Dupree, who is disbanded from Maximum Male Bottles. You got Akira Tozawa, who's been on part of like every little faction or every little thing with the 24/7 title forever. Like, you're just putting people in places for the hell of it. Street Profits not being able to do much more as they were as a tag team, and they're not getting the titles. They don't think they got them right on the main roster. And they go with Bobby Lashley to attach them there. Let's go and create another Hurt Business. But like, it's like just, they're not performing well. So let's do something with them. We got to do something with them. We got to make the good with what we have. So they lose the major focus. And now they're just, they're just trying to patchwork their way to relevant stars to keep them mid-card relevant. That's it. Okay, Grayson Waller effect. It's just not panning out. So attach him to Austin Theory, who Austin Theory's been actually booked really well. But he's a bit of a basic character too. Okay, he can talk. He got an ego. He's got the physique, but not much more to him. Well, the attachment, he was being worked up by Vince McMahon. Other than that, Austin Theory's just out there. He's just kind of like prototypical creator wrestler. But there's not anything significant. Okay, A-Town down. All right, catchphrase. What else? They don't do much more to build the character off, okay? When they could. Brawling Brutes, okay. Nothing extra special about what they're doing with them either. Judgment Day, somewhat. The Rhea Ripley, Dominic Mysterio, kind of Bonnie and Clyde kind of feel, yeah, they're playing off of that. That's good, but that's not the whole group. They also have to go ahead and kind of take care of the anchor of Damian Priest and Finn Balor that are just kind of flat. I mean, you make them important because, okay, they were tag team champions, again, whatever. Damian Priest still holds that damn briefcase. He could be another Baron Corbin and he'll cash in, he'll lose. But Damian Priest is not any more significant with that briefcase than he was without it. Okay? You split Jimmy and Jay, split them apart when they're much better together. Like, I know a storyline they had to go and do that, but now you're having them after 10 plus years in their career, splitting them off and having to kind of create some individuality between them. There's not much they did to individualize them. Jey Uso is still Jey Uso as a face. And Jimmy Uso, okay, he wears solid colors. And he's got a little bit of this quirky attitude. That's not enough. Triple H, Tony Khan, this is not enough. You're not developing. You're not well-rounding, multi-dimensioning these characters. You're not. And you know what? We talk about superheroes, like larger-than-life characters. There's things that you know about certain characters that really can just stand out and really create quite a bit of a mystique about it. Okay? MJF on AEW side is a great example of multidimensional. Listen, we have lived through this guy being a schemer, a scam artist, paying off people a bribe, all this scumbaggery, right? Talks crap to people. He just has the attitude that there's a well-rounded, well-crafted character. Like, you can name 5 or 6 things about MJF that are synonymous with him. Aside from his catchphrases. You could describe the MJF character. You can describe and you can depict what the MJF character is. Why do you think that crowd's so into him? Now, unfortunately, what they've done to build around him hasn't worked out well. Because right now, with CM Punk out there, or with Jon Moxley, or whoever else that are up against MJF for that title. Maybe some interest when they had the 4 pillars. That was pretty good. I like that. Then they split that off. But MJF still consistently good character. Adam Cole and putting that dynamic together, people really enjoyed that as opponents and as friends. People have enjoyed that part, but Adam Cole's hurt. So MJF has to go ahead and carry the load as a babyface without the protagonist that helps to build that face character, that babyface character. So he's been kind of hindered by that. And he's doing the best he can. And has really done really well for what he can do. But you got to have a couple of people that can go ahead and be built up. They're important. The standards about it, right? You think about Sami Zayn and his dynamic with the bloodline and what they did with that. I mean, Sami Zayn coming in, honorary Uce, goofball, trying to be like the people pleaser, to go get her, right? It was just the way he was being brought across. There's so many things that were synonymous with him on how he was this character that was liked and a bit off-putting and, annoying and things like that in most cases for the bloodline, but got worked in. Something about that character in that bloodline that really stood out, which is why he's so beloved right now. And by the way, they were able to go ahead and split him off from Kevin Owens on different brands. They're doing just fine. Same as he's not hurting. They had a good match with Seth Rollins for the title on Raw. Yeah, very good job. But it's not enough. It's got to be where all of it. Seth Rollins, okay, flamboyant dresser. He's got the laugh. He's got his way of talking. That's a pretty well-rounded character. But put him with Roman Reigns and give them a program. Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. I talked about the booking. See, the part about the booking that some people didn't understand when I talked about it on TikTok, or I put it out on over across the board, right? On clips. The post show for Crown Jewel, which is up on the website, kingofpodcasts.com, right? I pitched the idea that you could have Seth defend the World Heavyweight title on Saturday night, the first night in Philadelphia, WrestleMania 40. And then the second night, he makes a stipulation to get himself inserted and go title versus, or go winner take all, and put his World Heavyweight title up against Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, same way. The Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns dynamic. There's so much to be said about them. Like, remember, Seth Rollins also going through a lot when it came to the Architect, you know, the Monday Night Messiah, to where he is right now. Seth freaking Rollins. There's a lot of attachment to the character. And why some stars do so well is because, remember, they've had multiple gimmicks. So multiple dimensions of their character. Think about it. When you think of some of the nicknames that certain stars have, it's because there are certain things about them that we always got, right? Randy Orton, Legend Killer, right? You think of Triple H, Cerebral Assassin, The Game, right? You think of Undertaker, American Badass, or the corporate ministry style, or the, complete religious, spiritual, like this whole kind of theocratic kind of thing, whatever, right? It's just all these things of all these different stars that we had coming into play. The Triple H of DX, the Triple H of Evolution, right? The Shawn Michaels of DX, the Shawn Michaels of, the Heartbreak Kid, all these different dimensional characters. Like, their gimmicks changed them to multiple things. With Roman Reigns, he now has that too. Tribal Chief. But the Tribal Chief actually has depth. There are multiple things you can say about who Roman Reigns is. He's a narcissist. He's a manipulator. Right? He's an he's an egomaniac. Right? He's sarcastic. And he doesn't give a shit about the crowd. There are a lot of things you can think about with Roman Reigns with depth. Where's the depth for the other characters? Right? Grayson Waller doesn't have it, right? Johnny Gargano doesn't have that. Dominic Mysterio was trying to get some of that because we had him as he was Ray's son. And I mean, he's, scumbag son to his dad, scumbag to his family. Now he's like this lecherous. Oh, he's a criminal. He's a gangster. He's a vato. He's Latino heat. And now he's like this, runaway with Rhea Ripley, who's also changed her character. My brutality to now being the Monday Night Mommy. Like, again, the gimmicks create depth to the characters. That's a good thing. We could use more of that. Like, all these stars need depth. If you can't do it with the gimmicks, then do it with something else. And sometimes when you have these gimmicks, you don't allow it to play it out. Like, Sheamus doesn't get much to play it out. Drew McIntyre, I'll tell you what. If he finally goes heel, he goes back to the Chosen One. He goes back to Shattered Dreams, and he gets to play off of both, and then he's no longer the just Scottish, psychopath, right? Think about it like that. Multi-dimensional character. Because they never talk anything about his character before when he came up. But you could do that. And let him kind of have a playoff on both. You still have Future Shock. You have all these other moves that he does. You could, maybe the Drew McIntyre thing could work. But also, are they going to have him go back to main event? They had him lose to Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel. Does he get another shot at it? Right? We don't know. But these are things we need to figure out. It's the storytelling that's not there. And then look, for some of the other stars, they're just attachments of their former selves. Edge is Adam Copeland. Same thing. Christian Cage is getting over because he is multiple, right? The Christian Cage was the Christian that hung on with Edge and they were like, flash photography. And Christian Cage, he's actually just evolutionizing the Instant Classic character, which was younger and brasher. Now he's the daddy figure. And that works. Like, we enjoy him being out there. And him and Edge should work together right. But, there's only so much they're going to have that right there. The Don Callis family, well, we need more depth than that. Like, there's some enjoyment right there. But let's individualize the Don Callis family. Like, these individual characters, we need to recognize them for who they are. Like, they have to be like, it's like the members of boy bands, right? Or just like how the Horsemen were. You just saw a particular dynamic of certain stars in there that were what they were. Okay, so Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, needs to be positioned and noted as the enforcer, which was always because like all these factions we had before, we always had these prototypes, these archetypes for all these factions. You have the enforcer, young upstart, the veteran as the leader, and then like the tag team, right? All these things, or even when you have a valet, it's even part of it. Like with Jericho Appreciation Society. Okay, 2.0, there's your tag team. Jake Hager, he's the enforcer. Jericho, he's the mainstay, he's the star. Anna Jay, she's kind of like the valet, but also wrestling. Right? Daniel Garcia, the young upstart. They had a setup. That's the standard format. We think about Inner Circle. Sammy Guevara, the upstart. Jake Hager, enforcer. Jericho, the star. Right? Proud and Powerful, the tag team. With Judgment Day, where's the enforcer? JD McDonough? JD McDonough is like an odd person out on the whole mix. Like, he's not like the young upstart. Dominic is the young upstart. The female heavy is Rhea Ripley. The tag team, unfortunately, is Damian Priest and Finn Balor, but they're not always that. They're also individualized, which doesn't necessarily work. If they're going to be a tag team, they need to be a tag team. It's kind of like that thought process. But the Horsemen were set like that. Evolution was set like that. D-Generation X was set like that. Like D-Generation X, China was the enforcer. And then you think about, okay, New Age Outlaws, tag team. Shawn Michaels is the specialist. Triple H is like the star. But there was like Shawn Michaels and Triple H were the stars together in tandem. You think of Evolution, Ric Flair, the star. Triple H is like, Batista was the enforcer. But there wasn't necessarily a tag team in that mix. I mean, Randy Orton was, but not necessarily. But Randy Orton was the young stud in that faction. See, it all works out like that. There's something where there's depth within the factions, depth within the individual stars. So we have to create storylines with that. See, we don't have to do scripted storylines like all these other shows, okay? It's already hard enough for scripted shows to be done on streaming or on television right now anyway. Like, who's doing a really good job right now in the first place that's really drawing everybody in? Yellowstone, and that's going away. What else? Walking Dead, though, that's kind of on this wayside, right? What else? The Bear? Give me another show. But it's because they had different stars with different depth, different storylines, different reasons we know, we get attached to the stars and their characters. Why we emulate them, why we want to be them, why we follow them, why we talk about them. Like, where's that component? Depth. Okay, Undisputed Era. What a great example. Tell me how that worked out. Okay, so I guess Adam Cole's like the star. Roderick Strong, he's not the enforcer. He's not like anything like that. I mean, think about it. Yeah, at Colorado, okay. But like, seriously, think about that all together. When you look at that group, which was everybody was so up and at and so excited about, ask yourself the question. Bobby Fish, Colorado, Red Dragon, tag team. Roderick Strong, not an enforcer. Adam Cole's the star. And Roderick Strong, what was he? Was like the cruiserweight? Was he like the technical specialist? I guess. Right? How about the Hurt Business? The Hurt Business worked so well is because they had the manager, right? You had Bobby Lashley, the star. Benjamin Alexander, pretty much the tag team. No enforcer. You know, Benjamin Alexander didn't have much to go with. Like, they were just kind of like flat. That's why they never really lasted out. But Bobby Lashley was the name. So it was more than just Bobby Lashley was just surrounded by people that, you know, were doing his bidding. And that was it. What else? Like, this is the part I want to go and make the point. You're going to create factions. The factions have to have some individuality. It's like band members. Okay? It's like the boy band system. You have the cute one, the roughhouse one, you know, the rebel one, the this and that. Like the smart one, the poignant one, the effeminate one, whatever. We don't have that right now. Like, there's the setup, that kind of dynamic does work over in the AEW fractions, right? I mean, in some cases. But they're also like, they got a lot of factions anyway. Okay, let me tell you this. House of Black, great example. Here we go. House of Black AEW. Okay. With that group, Malachi Black, he is the star. Buddy Matthews, Brody King, well, yeah, well, they're also, that's the three-man faction. Brody King, I would also say the enforcer, but then Brody and Buddy, they work together as a tag team. Got it. And Julia Hart is the other quotient as the woman, and just like there's the kind of just a part in the whole group as well. Big difference. You know, kind of symbol of the House of Black. That's good. And let's think about the faction. But wait, it's all the same system. You got to have a tag team, enforcer, and a star. And in some cases, some way, shape, or form, or like a cruiserweight star, that's part of the group, or young upstart, part of the group as well. Julia Hart actually counts as the young upstart, being a part of this group. La Faction Ingobernable. All right, how about this? Let's look at their group. At the current moment, El Toro Blanco, that's the star. Tralístico, he's a bit of the mix in the sense of, like, he's the young upstart. Preston Vance, kind of like the enforcer. In a way, it looks like that. Okay, here's another one. Mogul Embassy. How about that? That's a good idea. So they got the manager, Prince Nana. He's the dancer. He's the schemer. You know, he's the greedy guy. It's one of those things where Prince Nana already kind of built in with a character coming out of Ring of Honor because he was just so like out there and flamboyant and just elusive. It's always that character was just like, that's why he's getting over now. Of Mogul Embassy, by the way, he's helping Swerve Strickland get over. Swerve Strickland's the star of that group. Then you got Gates of Agony, Brian Cage, enforcer. You see that? And that's working. Shane Strickland, Keith Lee, not much of a dynamic. But Mogul Embassy with Shane Strickland up here, yeah, it works. Now, why isn't it Swerve Strickland works so well with Mogul Embassy and not Hit Row? You want to understand why? Let's make that point too. Top Dollar's your enforcer? Oops. Ashanti Adonis? Oh, is he the cruiserweight? No, he's not necessarily. Not good of a tag team either. I mean, BFAB? Okay. But she didn't wrestle, did she? So what else is there to that? I don't know. Why did we like Toxic Attraction? Well, we liked it because it was basically beautiful people. Don't tell me it's not. Don't tell me it's not. See, beautiful people were, yeah, it was Velvet Sky, Angelina Love, but you forget Madison Graham was part of that mix too. She was the young upstart. And Velvet Sky, Angelina Love, the tag team, the stars. Madison Graham worked her way up within Beautiful People. Remember, Beautiful People was a great gimmick, got up there, and stood out. And Madison Rayne, as a result of being in that Knockouts division in that group, she stood out. Yeah, pretty good. There's ways to get storytelling going across. And it's not that you have to do and tell some intricate story. But let's get some people that everybody can get around. Okay, here's one person somebody likes. Here's another one of this group that somebody likes, right? We all like that. In the factions, you should have a favorite. Okay, so Judgment Day somewhat has that. But I'll tell you this. Do you want to like add the extra part of the mix for Judgment Day to make them really good? I guess Damian Priest is the enforcer, but they don't necessarily use him as the enforcer. When he should. They should. But he's not like that. I don't see Damian Priest out there playing that role because they have to make him, towards the title. He has to be up there at a certain level. And Finn Balor, I never felt like really fit the spot. When you originally put Judgment Day together, Edge was a star. Then Damian Priest probably set as the enforcer. Dom wasn't in the mix yet, and Rhea was already set up. There was something there. So you create depth within the factions, which is why there's so many factions right now. But then the individual stars, you got to do something more with. Which is why I always said, you need stars to be going up against multiple opponents, and not just the same opponent or the same one just like as a dancing partner for months and months on end. One of the reasons why Cody Rhodes didn't get so much out of this was because, he didn't get to confront the bloodline enough this whole year. They kept them step off. Now, let's see what Survivor Series does. You know why Survivor Series is so interesting now? The fact that we're going to have the matches we're going to get set up a couple weeks. Do you understand why the dynamic is so good for that? Is because you got different depth of characters across the board. Let me ask you this before I get to that. Toni Storm. Why are we liking her so much? She's arrogant. The silver screen kind of thing. This larger than life thing. Now she has Lutha as the character. Her way of talking to everyone. It just works. How about the novelty characters? Let's look at that. Let's look at, when we look at R-Truth, even The Miz has depth, right? As a champion, the must-see A-lister, all these different names across himself, right? Because they've adapted him and changed him across the board. That's why he's consistent. But you can't keep putting him out there as champion, because of the way he was. Remember, there was a while. He got up to the championship again when they needed it, and he was there. And nobody really said much about it. So like I said, let's get the Survivor Series in a moment. That's why that dynamic has always worked so well, why people like it so much, besides the fact it's war games. Because even if they're going the 5-on-5 they got right now, you could do it without the cage, and it's fine. But yeah, the extra part of war games makes it much better. Agreed. So let's get back to Toni Storm. Like I said, you got all these different characters across where she's changed now. She's trying to be the star. She feels like she's missing things. Just the whole character, her look, people, girls can emulate that. Can go. She's different than everybody else. Also, completely different. Like Toni Storm with the Outcast, kind of just run of the mill. We like her. She wrestles great. We love Toni Storm. But now we adore Toni Storm. Toni Storm now and this new character, just night and day. Just in awe and admiration. I love the character. And listen, go black and white for their contract signing with her and Hikaru Shida for Full Gear. Fantastic. And just in I go back and look at it. And you're talking about, in 2 minutes they do that segment. And Tony Schiavone gets his name Siobhan. She's spitting out gum. Like the complete arrogant, cantankerous, pompous actress, full of herself, big-headed, acting like just some rich, pompous, entitled aristocrat with the platinum blonde hair and the do. And I'm like the black and white, the whole thing they're doing is just magic. Whoever, I don't know if this was Toni Storm, how much she put into this. I would imagine, I'm sure she's embracing the character. Whoever put this across to her, this is magic. It's working. It's really good. Really good. People look forward to this. Hell, like right now, we're seeing the whole deal of seeing her out there on a regular basis. And I'm like, damn, man, this character, you just put her in picture. We're all loving it. Sammy Guevara, when he used to have the cue cards, we loved that shit. Wish he would have kept doing it more, but like, it's good across the board. All right, so let's go and get back to this now. Like Judgment Day could use somebody more, another character there to build up as that. Like I said, there was a setup with Judgment Day how they had it, but like that switch off, like I'd like to see Finn Balor get out of there. Well, you know, if they had another star that was even like a higher end up than Finn Balor, then I would take Judgment Day a much more other level. Because the problem is Dom and Rhea overshadow what Finn Balor is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the star of the group, the leader, but he's not. We don't have a leader in that group. That's the problem. Who's the star? Who's the leader? There isn't one. Now, not a bad idea to put that in storyline, but you got to do work with it more. Like there's been like they've had friction. Oh, they patch it back up, but like really, there's not much more to it. So Survivor Series, why are we going to like that so much? All right. You know why? Because part of it is different characters across the board for the match. They set up the match with Cody, Seth, Sammy, Giuso, right? And when you put that together, that's great. And then you go ahead and say, okay, well, what next? You do the thing with the Bloodline attaching themselves with their stars over there, right? So again, Seth, Cody, Jay, Sammy, and then Finn, Damian, Dom, and JD McDonough in the War Games match. JD McDonough serves no purpose. I'm not saying he's not a bad wrestler. I don't like him in this gimmick. I don't like him being attached or trying to get themselves involved with Judgment Day. He just looks odd man out. He's a square peg in a round hole. Trying to get in a round hole. He doesn't fit. Does not fit. So that's where we are. And by the way, for Survivor Series, okay, we're going with Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark, where's the depth in her? She's a lackey for Trish Stratus. What else? What else? I mean, if we could do something more, there's things where you do have to do some changes just to create depth, but the storytelling's not there. And the storytelling doesn't have to be like write the script and make it something so outlandish that has to go over weeks and weeks. It doesn't have to be Bloodline, but there could be something more. What about Alpha Academy? What depth is there to that? Not much. Or War Raiders, not much of that. Or Viking Raiders, not much of that either. The 3-man teams, like just because they want to create trios, doesn't really work much. Like even that part where you're talking about, all right, trios out of a group like the Elite. I mean, Omega was the cleaner, not so much the enforcer. The tag team's the Young Bucks, and Hangman Adam Page was like the kind of the upstart. Right? That's how Elite was actually built in that way. Now, what else? But like I said, Don Callis family is set that way. I mean, they don't necessarily have a tag team yet. They need to build that up. Takeshita is like the young upstart. Guevara. And I guess what is Ospreay and Guevara? Or is it now that Mark Fletcher's over there? Like Fletcher and Guevara need to be the tag team. And Hobbs needs to be the enforcer. And the mind is Don Callis. But we need to set that up. Like Fletcher and Guevara, now that they're set up with Aussie Open, is like not going to be together because which one of them is already injured. So Fletcher and Guevara, make them a tag team. Put them up against FTR or whoever you want. And get that going. And sometimes it's just a matter of like, you get stars that are just kind of quirky. Orange Cassidy works. Darby Allin also works. Brooding, skateboarder, just out there. Kind of mental, demented kind of like deal, right? And then Orange Cassidy, it's like, okay, no catchphrase, no gimmick. Simple, goofy, and just out there. Like there's dimensions to such a simple character, but it's not so simple a character, but it works. He's over. And then if you are going to have factions where you're going to have like a star that's like a big star, and you're going to have like somebody there to accompany them, because you know how you always have these weaker stars that always have somebody as their sidekick, right? Miz, for whatever, Alex Riley for a long time did work, you know, holding out there and holding the briefcase, right? Or Miz and Damian Sandow, that actually worked too. Like Miz actually was always getting better, getting good with that, right? Kind of like worked out. But that's the problem. Like, I've already gone an hour with this. I could go more, but there's a few things I got to talk about anyway. We didn't even talk about the CW deal. Let's go and talk about that right now. Okay. So CW will now have a 5-year deal with bringing the NXT brand over to CW. Starts October 2024. It will air live every week during the year. We talked about the deal about the sports programming that CW is adding onto their lineup. And then Deadline goes into the story about WWE and NBC Universal agreeing to a 5-year domestic media rights deal, bringing Friday Night SmackDown to USA Network, October 2024. Deal's worth $200 million. That deal, $200 million. No word about Raw and where that's going to go yet. But everything's kind of set right now with WWE, but they just need to go and work out what's going to happen with Raw. Where is it going to go? Is it going to stay or what? Now, currently, the USA Network's deal with NXT, $15 million a year. CW reported right now from Deadline. Deadline hears that CW is offering probably more than double the $15 million price tag of the current contract. So yeah, $40 million to go over to CW. That's a good deal for WWE. They got the increase that they wanted. They got themselves probably, you know, set up where CW is in a situation. They're in the dynamic where they need WWE to help bolster their programming. Well, meanwhile, Fox doesn't need it. Fox could put programming there, whatever they want, scripted programming, variety shows, whatever they want, they're fine. And they're not paying the outsourcing of that. And Disney saves some money. Got it. So NXT right now, number one cable primetime on Tuesday nights last quarter among adults 18 to 49, 18 to 34. But remember, that's all because of the extra stars that have been coming through NXT. And are they going to continue that on NXT going through into October of next year for CW? That's the point. Now, the rumor TV networks that are trying to go after Raw that have been reported so far. Dave Meltzer said this on Wrestling Observer Radio. Earnings reports coming up, and the rumors of Raw, the rumor mill right now has either FX, Warner Brothers Discovery, which would be a very crazy situation, but I think it's a long shot too, and USA. Analysts believe they're going to get a 42% increase. May not drop the stock because it's down lower than it probably should be. It won't help it out, but it'll be more profitable. So almost 50% increase to move Raw, either to keep it where it's at or to move it. So FX, could it go to FX? I mean, it could. Kind of off for FX to go and take programming like that because they've been so scripted programming and such quality scripted programming for years. So it doesn't make sense for that. My thought process, I think USA takes it and keeps it. So USA might just keep both nights. They've already let NXT go. So now you got Monday and Friday nights, and now Tuesday nights you could use for whatever else. Tuesday night opens up. Wrestling Monday and Friday nights, same spot. Okay. That would work for me. It's interesting that we haven't heard anything from Amazon or anybody else that also could come in, but that's the word. But that's what Dave Meltzer's saying. And it could be somebody else. And I'm sure under wraps, TKO Group Holdings probably has somebody else under wraps anyway. TNA, Scott D'Amore spoke with Sports Illustrated and Justin Barrasso. And he talked about now that AEW, it's where TNT is back. And so they're doing a lot of things to get the return to TNA back up there. Okay. Hard to Kill pay-per-views will be held at the Palms Hotel and Casino. Premium venue in Vegas. Remember, they're not doing Sam's Town now. They're doing the Palms. So the working plan is to be a presence at more high-profile venues throughout the country. Scott D'Amore says you're going to see upgrades to our look and pacing. We're in a position to inspire the next generation. Will Ospreay mentioned to me he grew up a TNA wrestling kid. And TNA holds a special place in his heart. So they don't know if Will Ospreay is going to be signing with TNA or not, but they had a chance to go and work with him already at Bound for Glory. Maybe something can happen. They could also see a CM Punk, who's a free agent and was backstage at Bound for Glory, could also be considered to join the company if there's some chance for that to happen. So there's been exploration about CM Punk maybe going to TNA, but nothing concrete. Impact's last special event will be Final Resolution, and that's how they send up with that. And they'll just move along. So, TNA wants to go ahead and take the next step and build them back up to a company they were before. Let's see what happens. Jade Cargill responds to the fact that she has not wrestled in WWE yet. So, on Twitter, she wrote, "Why wrestle when my big check clears every week, baby?" She responded to a fan who noted that she's in the wrestling business when she wrote, "No, I'm in the money make. No, it's the I'm making money business," she says. So there was that going on. There's talk about frustration within Billy Corgan and the NWA. That's a report that's been going on right now. Because we kept hearing about that there were paired deals that apparently were going to be signed for CW to see NWA Power and an unnamed reality show to air on CW. But now CW has picked up NXT. So we talked about the Jim Mitchell, the cocaine deal at NWA Samhain. Now, Corgan's already disputed the story. Fightful.com has reported that one NWA talent was blindsided by the news. House of Wrestling reported, which we already talked about this last week, or actually on the post show for Crown Jewel, they talked about how, the deal was in jeopardy for the CW deal for NWA. So there was a report from House of Wrestling that Corgan withdrew from those close to him following the news. A WWE source told him the impression that talks with the network accelerated following the incident, as fans had bombarded the CW with outrage over the angle. But now there's an active push by those higher up at the CW for NWA programming only air on the app rather than on television. So we heard about that. We don't know. Now, the other thing that's going on that's important I want to bring up here is Major League Wrestling. They've been making some moves, right? They have an upcoming pay-per-view for them right now. What is it? MLW One Shot, right? That's coming up now. And so that's Thursday, December 7th. But first they have Fightland. That's what's coming up next. So the moment Fightland's already been booked up with this. They got the World Heavyweight title. Jacob Fatu takes on Alex Kane. Matt Cardona versus Vance Warner. Loser leaves MLW. The Calling versus Second Gear Crew. And a ladder match of the World Tag Team titles. Rocky Romero, Barbaro Cavernario, accompanied by Selena de la Renta. So La Promociones Dorado is now going with the tag teams. And a tag team match against Mascara Dorada and Ichiban. And they'll set that up. By the way, Romero, Cavernario, CMLL tag team champions. And Rocky Romero, I think he's the middleweight champion, right? No, the national open weight. I forget. Tom Lawler and a tag team partner to be named later versus Bomea Fight Club. Actually, that's a Fusion TV taping. Never mind. But those matches we already got so far. 4 matches set up for Fightland. And one name that's not on that list has been kind of left out in the talk. And by the way, we need to keep an eye on this. Alexander Hammerstone. The longest reigning MLW World Heavyweight Champion. We haven't heard from him in a long time. He announced that he asked for his release on October 29th. And on Twitter, he noted that while he was told MLW was working on his release, the promotion told the media they wouldn't release him, and he's not on the roster page, nor has he been contacted in future days about not being used in over 100 days, and questioned whether he's being punished or if it's a miscommunication issue. So he's talking vocally about it. Not sure what to think about what's going on here and why this is happening, but yeah, we're not hearing anything about the fact that Alexander Hammerstone's not around, but he's asking for his release. No word back. He's a free agent for somebody. Somebody will look at picking him up. Listen, he's going to go up a ladder. I mean, TNA could go after, but like, who could go and feasibly go after him? Like, I'll tell you, NWA, TNA should both look at Hammerstone. And you know what? I mean, WWE and AEW should also look at Hammerstone. Like, there's, sky's the limit. He's a star. He's got a great build, a good look. Like, he's the Hulk Hogan prototype of the 2020s. He can be called up anywhere. Like, let's see where he goes. I want to see more. We'll figure it out. That's the show for tonight. And I went long. How long has it been that I did that? But I did a rant. A pretty good man-sized rant tonight. So enjoy that. But we're not getting, any pay-per-views this weekend, which is nice. Take a break. Relax. I don't want to be going too much on that. Like, I just wanted to go and take some time and just relax and just, been a lot of Saturday nights working and all this stuff. So, end of the month, we'll get into things where, Mariah May also now signing with AEW. Now she's on Dynamite. She looks great. Stardom, all that good stuff, great. Oh, we didn't talk about this either. On Dynamite, Samoa Joe vacating the Ring of Honor TV title to go after the world champion, MJF. Interesting. Like, it's like option C, isn't it? So, by the way, the events schedule right now coming up. AEW Full Gear, November 18th. That's next Saturday night, right? Or next Sunday night, excuse me. Survivor Series, November 25th, my birthday. Impact Final Resolution, the final Impact pay-per-view under the Impact name, December 9th. NXT Deadline, December 9th. And Ring of Honor Final Battle will be going on in Garland, Texas, December 15th. And that's the setup right there. That's the show. KingofPodcasts.com. That's where you go ahead and find all the content on a regular basis. And all the social media you can also find on the website, KingofPodcasts.com. And of course, King of Podcasts on X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for listening in. Come back for another Wrestling's World podcast because wrestling needs us.